Europeans liked playing a type of game in the 15th century where you put balls on top of a table and hit it with a stick so you can score. This game has evolved to be billiards or 8-ball nowadays, but this was the first of its kind. We continue to move forward, the game gets more advanced and more enjoyable to play, and of course it becomes more popular throughout the world. When we get to the 19th century, everybody loves this game, but there is a huge problem. The balls have to be made from elephant tusk, something extremely rare and expensive, and of course it endangers the species of elephants. And on the other side, it was extremely expensive to have these balls. So they began experimenting, trying to build balls with different products like stone, granite, and anything else you can think of. They even tried with wood, but none of them were as good as elephant tusk. When we get to 1860, pool has become so popular in the West that everybody wants to play it. But there is a shortage of these balls. This is when billiard companies started putting awards like $10,000 for a scientist or an engineer to figure out how to make a ball artificially that's similar to elephant tusk. When this company announces a reward like this, other companies hop on the bandwagon and started awarding $10,000 as well. In the 1860s, $10,000 was an insane amount of money. If you calculate it in today's money, that's about $370,000. This amount of money motivated a lot of scientists and engineers to start working towards this goal because they wanted that money. Between all these scientists, there was an American engineer by the name of John Wesley Hyatt. He started 3 years late. That means 3 years after this award was set in stone. But in this 3 years, no one had figured out a solution for the billiard balls. John decides to create a product so he can make these balls, and he works at it for 5 years straight. But he doesn't give up, and eventually in the year 1868, he figured something out and invented a new type of solution, something that would change the world forever. He names it celluloid, and it's interesting to know it comes from cellulose, a part of a plant cell. With cellulose, he creates celluloid and decides to make the billiard ball. The ball looked good in the beginning, but it didn't work like an elephant tusk ball. It was lighter and it wouldn't bounce as good. But John did not give up because he knew he invented something important and something that was going to change the world. So instead of crying and giving up, he gave it his all to make sure that he can make his invention better and better. John Hyatt didn't know what type of an invention he had created because he made the first type of plastic artificially. So what is a plastic? Do you think a plastic has to come from a form of fossil fuel? No. A plastic, especially in the old days, meant something that has a uniform of one type of molecule. But now, the meaning of plastic is completely different from back then, because anything that's made up of one type of molecule and it's uniformly lined, it's called plastic, something like silk, wool, or protein. But nowadays, anything that has plastic in it, it means it came from a form of fossil fuel. Either way, John Hyatt tried to make his invention better and better, but unfortunately he was not successful in that region and he didn't win the $10,000 award. But nobody in the world was even close to success. More than 40 years pass, a lot of engineers and scientists are looking for a way to create the billiard ball artificially, but nobody has figured out a solution. When we get to 1907, chemists and scientists around the world are not looking for billiard balls anymore. They're trying to look for a new type of compound that could change the world and make life easier. These chemists take celluloid, the invention of John Hyatt, into the laboratory and add a type of tar from coal called phenol. The solution they made was a type of plastic which they named Bakelite. Bakelite was the first type of plastic that came from fossil fuel. Beforehand, if you put celluloid underneath the sun, it would change its form. And basically, it was no longer the original form and it would be broken. But Bakelite was cheaper, stronger, and on the other side, heat would not destroy it like it did celluloid. Creating a plastic like this literally changed the world, especially the US, and they continued working in a laboratory to make this type of plastic better and stronger. They work for another 13 years and they figure something out. They invent another type of plastic, a plastic called polystyrene, which was not hard and it was flexible. Bakelite was brittle, but polystyrene was flexible, so it had many other uses. Another 13 years pass and they figured out another form of plastic, something called polyvinyl chloride, or for short, vinyl. Vinyl was the best plastic that was created at that time. It was flexible and not brittle, yet it was strong. A few years later, they create acrylic, and all these are happening in the US. After acrylic, they create another revolutionary plastic called nylon. This plastic was so important because it immediately replaced silk, even though it wasn't as high quality, but it was good. The inventions keep on coming. A few months later, another important plastic is invented called polyethylene, and this is the most produced plastic in the world. Different bags, different bottles, and a lot of different clothes have this type of plastic. If you remember, John Hyatt was the inventor of the first type of plastic, but alongside that he had another invention that back then wasn't that important, but the more we move forward from the invention of his cue balls, they get more important, something called injection molding. Injection molding was the most important thing alongside plastic, because without it, it wasn't as useful. The important part about injection molding was the mold of it, because any type of mold you created, you can create that part easily, quickly, and it was still high quality. So that alone sped up production to create more profits and make it cheaper. So 70 years after its invention, the mold injection tool became a revolutionary tool in the world. When we get to after World War II, plastic starts replacing a lot of things, and it's still been replaced to this day. Things like string, wood, some types of metal, and glass. Plastic caused packaging for food to be more sterile and safer, and that's the reason they called the 20th century the century of plastic. But all these good things have to have some bad things as well. And that's exactly right for plastic. There is a lot of plastic garbage everywhere. Plastic is a type of material that does not easily decompose in nature, so it could stay in nature for centuries. Like for example, if you put a piece of paper in nature, it will easily decompose and disappear. But depending on the quality of the plastic, it could take 20 to 500 years to decompose. The higher the quality, the slower the decomposition. A thin piece of plastic could decompose in 20 years, but something like a car bumper that's made from polyurethane, very hard plastic, this could take 500 years to completely decompose in nature. The plastic gets even more dangerous when it's put in the water and the oceans, because the decomposition rate slows down and it stays there for longer. It also pollutes the marine life and sometimes gets them killed. The cool thing is, plastics are recyclable, and before throwing away, you can throw it in the recycle bin so it can go to a plant and be used again. So not only are you reusing it, but you're cleaning up the nature. Nowadays, you have new types of plastic that are so strong that they probably won't even decompose in 500 years. Like for example, you have a type of plastic called polyamide, which is one of the strongest pieces of plastic in the world, used in rockets and aerospace. These pieces are very strong and they're also very heat resistant. Just look how advanced the plastic industry is, and imagine it in the next 10 years. Either way, technology will never stop, and that's for any type of study. What do you guys think?